Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hello, my lovely friends. Today we are going to dip our toes into something that I see come up a lot in my work with people on their relationships that's really a big obstacle to feeling great in those relationships, to feeling even good in your marriage, which is specifically believing that you are right about something and your partner is wrong, or that your way is better than your partner. And similar ways of thinking. There's all sorts of similar types of thinking that I'll get into a little bit more here. And I also just want to offer that, this issue is not limited to intimate relationships. It expands into all, it shows up in all kinds of relationships, like friends and family, but even larger than that, like different groups of people. And it really turns the whole human race kind of against each other in various ways. So if you can start shifting this in yourself, which is what I'm going to help you do today, you're going to be able to not only have a much better marriage, so much more connection, but you're also going to be helping the world in general have less of this divisiveness that we see so much these days. And really, it's always been the case in the history of humanity. But we do have some agency. We have some influence here. But let's start here in our personal relationships. So I want to start off right now telling a little story. It's actually a story about a story. When I was a little girl, actually all my life, my dad has had hanging on his wall this brush and ink. I don't know how you describe that. Picture / kind of, there's writing on it and there's like some brush strokes, right? It's kind of Zen. And I don't even remember the image so much as what it says on it, which is, it says the word crane. And then it says next to that, in quotes, "My way is better." I think there might be a little image of a crane, like a bird standing on one leg. And then next to that is a little image of a worm. And it says, in quotes, "No, my way is better." And then there's an image of a stone and it says stone. And then in quotes, it just says stone. So I did not understand this as a child. But as I've grown into an adult and have had more life experience and, as a relationship marriage coach now, I've started to really have a lot of appreciation for this little story. So I'll get back to the story in a minute, but part of what I take from this story, and I see all the time, is that it's wired into us humans to want to be right, or to go into this place of I'm right, or I'm better, right? My way is best. My way is better, right? Like the crane and the worm said. Right? We kind of have this tendency, it's totally unconscious, to think of ourselves as right, to see ourselves as the one who knows better, maybe, and I think this shows up a lot in our marriages. Like, we think we know how things should be done, how much we should talk or he should talk, how clean to keep things, how to parent, how we should eat, how our partner should think, how people should live, how people should show love. We might have a whole, spectrum of consciousness or unconsciousness around this, but on some level, so often we have these ideas that our way, our wants are the right way or the better way, and the way our partner is doing things and what he wants and what he cares about is not the right way or is not so right, or is not the better way. Really, we judge his way as not as good or worse than our own, or even as wrong. And I'll give you an example. Like my own brain tells me often, or sometimes, that my husband, should listen better when I'm upset. My brain likes to say that because I am good at listening to him. If he ever gets upset, he should listen the way I do to me when I'm upset. Right? My brain also likes to tell me my husband should not eat so many baked goods, right? Like me, I've decided that baked goods aren't great for me and they don't work for me. And so there's a part of my brain that's like, yeah, my husband eats too many of them. My healthy way is right and his way of eating is wrong, right? I also want to say, of course, sometimes we do the opposite. Our brains will do the opposite. We might think that our partner or anyone else out there is better and they know more, or that their way is right and our way is wrong, or our way is worse than. Right? And I think that this is kind of funny. I think it's fascinating how this illustrates how easily our brain goes into these extremes, goes into this right or wrong, this better and worse. It's really this black and white kind of thinking that our human brain is very susceptible to, right? The brain has a natural tendency to believe our way is right, like to divide into right and wrong, and to make others bad and to make us good. I think that's a part of that survival protection mechanism, is to make ourselves good and make others bad. And there's a lot to learn about this. I think it's fascinating to learn more in depth about this, but I'm not going to go too much into this right now. I do want to share a couple interesting things here. When we go into this place where we think we are right, one of the things that's really happening is that we're just buying into a story, perhaps one that's been taught by society to us or by our family. Again, like something that's can be a really rather arbitrary story in many cases. And instead of seeing it as an idea, right? Instead of seeing it as a story that we're buying into, we see it as a fact, right? As the way things should be, as the way things are, right? People should not eat baked goods, right? If we're looking at if we're thinking about where my brain goes there, right? We think it's a fact that our way is better, that it's the right quote unquote way, and his eating baked goods, in my example, not so much, right? Not the right thing, right? My brain loves to tell me that it's a fact that eating baked goods are not is a wrong way, right? So when we think in these ways, and there's obviously more serious things that come up in our brain, like the one about him being a better listener, right? Or not being so great at listening, like when our brains tell us that that's not the right way. So when that is challenged by the way our partner acts, like when he isn't a good listener, for example, or like his ways are different than your ways, or if he acts differently than you believe is the right way, like when your views are challenged by the way he shows up and the way he lives or behaves, what happens is we regress into this divisive part of our brain that declares, I'm right, you're wrong. My way is better, your way is worse. Now, there is this great saying, a little harsh, but I find it pretty true, is that you can be right or you can be married. I'll say it again. You can be right or you can be married. Because being so invested in being right, getting stuck in this part of the brain that loves to be right, is divisive, right? It creates division. When we decide that our way is right, when we don't question that part of our brain that likes to believe that we're right or better than, when we believe that it's a fact, that it's the truth of reality, that we're right, and we try to put that truth on our partner, we oftentimes get met with some resistance, right? Like if I try to tell my husband that like he should not eat baked goods and he's wrong for eating baked goods. Sorry, I'm laughing, right? Yeah, like that's not going to work, right? I'm going to be met with some resistance and possibly some rebellion. In fact, I've seen that happen. He's going to go buy more baked goods. Or we get met with defensiveness or a whole host of other things, withdrawal, right? So this I'm right, you're wrong positioning creates division. And really it's because all judgment divides. When we are in this divisive way of thinking, we lose touch with our wise heart, with our capacity to feel love and connection, with our capacity to understand and be open to others as they are. Yeah? And I know that it can feel great to be right. Right? When you're there, like when you're in that one up position and your other is in that one down position from you, like there is this sort of sense of superiority or like, I don't know, there's just like burst of like, ha ha ha, right? Like I'm right. I'm sure there's some like dopamine hit that goes on there. So it feels good to us, right? But I think if most of us were to, really step back, we wouldn't want to choose to think of ourselves as better than our partner, as more of a right human being than them, or that we're right more often than them. Because to feel connection and love, we cannot have one partner above the other or one partner below the other. Then we're not on the same level. I don't think if you really pause and think about it, I mean, for sure for me and for my clients, like we don't want to think of our partner as someone who's below us, right? That creates a sense of condescension in us, hostility even, right? And contempt. Or at the very least, it undermines respect for this person that supposedly we want to love, right? It undermines connection. It undermines the ability to see this other person as worthy of love. And it will 100% undermine your marriage the more you stay in that place. So when my primal brain hijacks me into this divisive place of better or worse, I mean, it will. It's what our primal brain does. Not only does that steal from me the feeling I want to have in my marriage, which is connection, not superiority, right? But I also feel like really out of integrity. Because I know in my heart that he is an equal to me, that my husband is an equal to me, and ultimately that all humans are equal to me. And I want to live that out. I want to show up and act out that deep knowing in my heart that we're all equal. I want to respect my husband. I want to show up as if he's an equal to me. How about you? I bet you do too. So, you can be right or you can be happily married. So I want to share a story about a client here, one of many who has been working with this. This particular client, like most of us, had many judgments of her husband. Like he's too talkative, like he shouldn't talk to her when she's watching her favorite TV show because she wouldn't do that to him, right? She wouldn't interrupt him when he was watching his show, right? And also, on the other hand, he's too non-talkative. Like he won't voluntarily share about his day and what he's thinking about the way she shares about her life voluntarily. Right? So there's basically this idea like he's talking too much, he's talking too little, i.e., in other words, he's doing it wrong, right? Now, I hear this kind of thing, he's doing it wrong, all the time from clients and even my own brain, right? And if your brain goes there, normal. And you can work with it to bring it to a better place, to get better results, all right? So again, but like this particular client, to illustrate what most of us do, is like she had trouble on some level accepting her husband's differences, right? Let alone valuing those differences, right? So when she was thinking in these ways, like he talks too much, he talks too little, she'd feel this sort of this sense of hardening towards him, right? Certainly she'd take herself far from feeling connected and love towards him, right? And what would oftentimes happen from that place of sort of hardening towards him is that she would snap at him, or she'd say something sort of condescending or critical, right? Speak with a critical tone, right? And then he'd feel that judgment, right? Because we can't hide it when we feel judgment. Promise you. And he would not feel safe in some way, right? He would not feel invited to open up and talk more. He felt seen as wrong, seen as falling short, and felt even kind of ashamed. Certainly not like safe and relaxed around her. And we know this because he actually shared this with her at a certain point. So the result of this for both of them was that things weren't so fun between them. There was not as much love, not as much closeness and connection. There was less space between them for understanding and knowing each other. There was more unhappiness, and that was kind of just a somewhat chronic state. So if this sounds at all familiar or reflects like even just a bit of your own experience, I want you to really understand this. This is a human challenge, not a personal challenge to you. Like nothing's particularly weirdly, uniquely wrong with you. This is a human challenge, right? Our brains are wired to turn against difference instinctively. They are wired to divide and put ourselves above others, right? Again, this is part of the primal survival system. Really, that's no longer serving us very well at all. It's really creating so many more problems in our society, and certainly in love, in our marriages. So to shift out of this, it's, for my client, just like for all of us, it requires a conscious intention to not hold other people's differences against them, to not make others bad or less than for being different, for thinking different, for having different ideas, for eating baked goods, right? It takes a conscious intention to see this part of us that does this, right? Without making it bad, right? We don't want to turn against our own brain, and choose to move out of it towards different but equal, not different and bad. So as this client learned how to work with this part of her brain that wanted to make him wrong and her right, over time, she was really able to stop that part of her brain from having so much power and step into way more openness and acceptance and sense of equality and connection ultimately with him. Her husband ultimately felt safer to be who he is with her, to share more and be more relaxed around her. And really, as a result, there was this way more easy flow of connection and lightness and fun. And on top of that, surprise, surprise, when she did all of this, she said that she felt so much better inside of herself, lighter, happier around him, and again, more connected. Like she felt better about herself. She actually said this. She told me, and I think that this really speaks for all of us HSPs, or most of us. She said, I'm a person who wants to be in connection with my person more than I want to be right. Right? So as she stepped into actually living that, she felt so good inside of herself, so in integrity, so aligned with her own values. So if you're someone who wants to be in connection with your person more than you want to be right, start catching yourself when you go into this line of thinking, or when your brain just slips into this mode of like, my way is right, my way is better, and invite yourself to move out of it towards feeling more equality, towards feeling more connection again. So the question you might have now is how? So for her, this client, simply seeing these judgments that she had, how her brain would go, like that habit of mind her brain had of seeing her way as better and catching when her brain was going there and judging him for not doing it right or not doing it the way she liked. That was a big part of the change. Like, this is so important to start just catching that habit of mind, right? Because then she could see the result it created for her and that she did not like that result, right? That was the disconnection and the feeling of hardness and the withdrawal from his part, right? So sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes simply seeing what this kind of thinking, sort of this black and white, he's like this judgmental thinking, this I'm right, he's wrong thinking, sometimes just seeing that is actually that's actually creating what we don't want, right? Disconnection, unhappy feelings. That's enough to stop getting so caught up in it, to begin to break the pattern, right? So start by simply seeing, start by watching how your brain likes to do that. See your judgment. Start noticing when your mind goes there to I'm right, he's wrong. And then really ask yourself if this way of seeing things is helping you get what you want, is creating the experience in your relationship that you want. Right? A couple questions might be, what is this creating? Right? When I'm thinking this way, how do I feel? And what result is coming about because of that? Do I feel the way I want to feel when I think this way? Yeah. And then I want to ask you right now, is it possible for you to believe that neither your way nor his way is better or worse? That his way isn't right or wrong, it's just different. For this particular client, an important part here was seeing, like, this is me. This is what I like and what I do. And this is him over here. That is him. This is what he likes and what he does. We're not the same. We don't think the same. We don't act the same. We're different, but we're equal. His way is different than mine, but not better or worse. And this brings me back to that story, right? Just like the stone was just stone. The stone had no judgments of better or worse, right? The stone simply is. This reminds me of another funny Zen thing that I saw on a calendar once. It was like something about a cucumber unaccountably cucumbering. I thought that was so funny. There's a husband unaccountably husbanding, right? Stone, stone. It's kind of like, instead of the crane saying my way is best and the worm saying my way is best, they both just say, the crane says crane, the worm says worm. They're just existing here together as they are in this world. I know, I'm getting a little Zen on you. But really, not better or worse, right? Just existing, equally existing. Now, the same client, one of the insights she had that, and she really sank into, was he does not have to be like me for me to feel positive about him. And I love that so much. And this speaks to how we unconsciously want our partner to be like us, right? I want my husband to eat less baked goods so he's more like me. And when our partner is not like us, we judge. And then we create this division. And we steal from ourselves our ability to feel love and connection and to be even enriched by this other person, right? Who they are. So I like this question, kind of as an extension of that, is do you really want your partner to be a replica of you? Right? If he always thought exactly like you and acted exactly like you and did exactly what you want and felt exactly like you, would you really like that? I ask some of my clients this and they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Like, no way do I want him to be just like me, right? When we sit and think about it. And aren't your partner's differences part of what drew you to him? Aren't those differences part of what keep your life interesting? Like your life together, right? Aren't those differences part of what make your life great together? Or could they be? Could you see it that way? These are some good things to think about. Because shifting our mindset like this can really allow us to start to have a wider appreciation for differences, for our partner's differences, right? To respect and actually be at peace with other people, particularly our intimate partner, being different than us. Because no matter what, he's going to be different than you. So you can either fight that and feel bad about it, or you can be at peace with it, right? And feel good about it. And we can even be enriched ourselves by allowing our partner to be who they are without the judgment and without sinking into that judgy place. We actually do get to enjoy our partner more for who he is, right? Without trying to change him and impose our agenda on him. And ultimately, like, this feels good in so many ways. It allows for so much freedom for both of you to be who you are, for you to come together with acceptance, with compassion, even with appreciation for who you each are. And I think, like, in so many ways, genuine acceptance is one of the highest forms of love, right? Like, to be fully loved for you exactly as you are, the biggest gift. So I hope that some of what I've offered so far has started to shift your thinking, shifted your mind, and I invite you to kind of play with or marinate in these thoughts and let them sink into you and let them kind of shift and rearrange your internal landscape a little bit. But I also want to invite you to try 2 specific things if you want to take this a little further. The first one is, like I said before, start noticing when your brain wants to be like judging him as wrong and thinking of yourself as, doing it the right way and his way is the wrong way. Whenever you catch yourself in that space, for example, maybe your husband's getting defensive again and you're not liking it and you're like, he shouldn't be so defensive, right? There's a part of you that does not is thinking that's wrong, that he's so defensive. I invite you to say to yourself, he's getting defensive and that's okay. Or for me, it would be like, he's eating baked goods and that's okay. Put that on anything that you tend to judge him for or think he's less than you for. That's okay. Do that over and over for the next week or 2, and you're going to start to feel a lightening up of this judgment, a releasing of this hardening against him, right? This division that you create internally when you get into that judgy place. Okay, so try that out. I love this. I love doing this. It frees me up so much. All right, second one. Next time you're in some sort of little debate or conflict, or he says something like, baked goods aren't bad for me, and you're like, yes, they are. Instead of digging into that, I'm right, kind of attitude, or even saying those words, like I've certainly been caught saying, I'm right, you're wrong, right? Instead of that, try out either of these sentences. You could be right, or I could be wrong. That openness to you not being right about something and him not being wrong about something, it allows more equality, right? It puts you on this equal ground. It takes you out of this like hardened sense of judgment, right, into a much more open, accepting space. And that is a space that you can love, right? That space is a space into which love can come in, or at least connection can come in. And it is from that openness to who your partner really is that you can really enjoy him for exactly who he is and how he shows up. with all his different ways of living and thinking and eating and loving and communicating, with all his different ways. And this lessening of judgment, the stepping into more openness, all of this allows you to be in a real amazing human relationship, genuinely and truly open to the goodness and the delightfulness of this human in front of you, right? Genuinely, lovingly intimate with who he is, this human beside you that you've chosen to spend your life with, right? And this puts you in deep integrity with the one whose skin you live in every moment of your life. This woman that you are. If you're curious to learn more about this particular phrase, you could be right, I could be wrong, and learn some other ways of communicating that release judgment, that are not coming from this judgmental place, that are coming from this place of respect and equality and openness that we've been talking about cultivating more of here, I invite you to grab my 7 most powerful phrases to deepen connection in your marriage. It's a free guide. It's a free little book that I put together just for you as a highly sensitive woman. And you can grab it over at my website, which is lifeisworthloving.com. I'll put the direct link to grab that free guidebook in the show notes. Be oh so well.